Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
But I'm going to sleep with that chart always. I'll be sleeping with that chart. That chart was very important.
Quiet Riot.
Hello, Quiet Rioters. This is Alex Andreou with another edition of Quiet Riot Midnight Mass. What was it that possessed me to stay up half the night in order to hear Elon Musk in conversation with Donald Trump? I guess I was sucked into it because it started in such a spectacularly awful fashion. Technically, I mean. Nothing was working. It was about 40 minutes late. No one could get into spaces, and when they could get into there, all they could hear was music. Elon Musk was frantically tweeting that, we tested this with millions of listeners and everything was fine. Then he started claiming that he was the victim of a DDoS attack. All the MAGAs were going crazy, putting out conspiracy theories that everyone from Anonymous to the EU had been responsible for this. The EU apparently were trying to silence Musk from telling the truth. When the truth was that every techie person I know had been saying for days that there is no way Spaces has the firepower to sustain that many listeners at the same time and was going to fall over for sure. And that is exactly what happened. By the time it did begin, I guess I was so full of schadenfreude, I sat there happily listening to what they were talking about. And it was so peculiar, so bizarre, such a car crash, that I ended up listening to the whole thing. And having listened to the whole thing, I thought it only fair that you didn't have to. So I've condensed the experience to a very manageable less than 20 minutes. It was 7 hours of the most interminable, meandering nonsense you have ever heard in your entire life. Okay, it wasn't 7 hours. It was more like 2.5. But it might as well have been 3 weeks. Time had no meaning in the infernal circle that was Spaces last night. It was the intellectual equivalent of palliative care, like that scene from Clockwork Orange where your eyes are propped open, your head immobilized, and you are made to watch again and again, not clips of violence this time, but the dullest conversation imaginable between your rich, flatulent, racist uncle that nobody likes and your coked-up Andrew Tate-loving cousin that nobody likes. The first 40 minutes were dedicated to the miracle of Trump surviving having his ear grazed.
It was a miracle. If I hadn't turned my head, I would not be talking to you right now. As much as I like you,
Exactly.
I would not. I would not be talking to you.
You'd be talking to me from another realm, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. We'd be talking from a different place.
On and on and on this went, and just when you thought it was over, on and on it went some more.
They didn't go well when I got up because they didn't know, was I alive? You really couldn't tell. When I stood up before the hand, before the fist in the air, they didn't know if I was alive. Nobody did.
There's no point rewinding. You actually heard what you heard. When he got up, nobody was sure whether he was alive until he raised his fist about 40 seconds later. When he stood up, nobody was sure whether he was alive. I mean, I know these are MAGA fans, but this is selling even them short. Now, I can't go any further until I introduce you to the other side of this dynamic duo, to the erudite, Shavian almost interviewing style of one Elon Musk.
Well, It was your. I think your actions in the heat of fire, and like what I found admirable there was that you can't fake bravery under such circumstances. The courage is instinctual or it is not. It's not a rehearsed action, and so I just want to say that I think a lot of people admire your courage under fire there, and
Well,
yeah. So
thank you very
yeah,
much. I appreciate it.
This sort of part stutter, part rim job did continue for the full 2.5 hours, but fortunately the subject matter changed after the first 40 minutes. 40 minutes, let me repeat, by which point I wanted to set my hair on fire just to restore feeling to my head. But eventually we got some policy areas. Immigration was first.
I believe, and I think you believe this too. You know, you hear 12
yeah,
million, 13. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country,
yeah,
many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is
yeah.
insane asylums, and many are terrorists.
Did you know that insane asylums are the larger version of mental institutions?
If somebody's if somebody's like you know uh, has a career in theft or robbery, I don't understand what's taken them so long to get here, because we're such a target-rich environment. Um, I mean, why aren't more people who have a career in bad things coming here sooner? Because it's a piece of cake to go rob houses in LA or New York, compared to other parts of the world. And in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's insane.
it's right.
Are you considering a career in theft, robbery, or bad things? Come to New York. Do remember these little snippets of Musk, by the way, for when we get to the end bit where he explains that he's really not right-wing at all. So I want you to remember these little tidbits.
Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa, from the Congo, they're coming from the Congo, and 22 people came in from the Congo recently, and they're murderers, and they dropped them. They drop them. They take them out of jails, which is very expensive, to maintain the jails. Although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out, and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, "Don't ever come back, or you're going to be executed." And they don't want to come back, but they won't come back.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South
Well,
America.
just
They're
Earth,
coming from
rest of Earth,
everywhere,
basically.
and there are a lot of
Yeah,
really
everywhere on
bad
Earth.
ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb everyone from Earth.
We're so sorry, everyone on Earth. We would like to accommodate you, but America just can't take you all, especially if you're considering a career in bad things. Now, there's an elephant in the room, and being the clever clogs that you are, you've probably already spotted it, having listened to quite a bit of this interview. Whichever one of Trump's team made the decision that since this interview wasn't filmed but audio only, he didn't have to put his teeth in, well, that was the wrong decision, especially if you plan to say United States of America a lot.
They take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, "Don't ever come back, or you're going to be executed."
Now, this bit I thought was very revealing.
Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably, and some people said, "Oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly," or "I did well in the debate." The first night they said, "Wow." One of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then 2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated, and I don't mind that at all.
Is this a soupçon of regret that I detect? Sorry, a soupçon of regret that I detect. Is he saying that had he not beaten Biden quite so comprehensively in that debate, he wouldn't now have to deal with this Kamala Harris woman? I think that is what he's saying. In fact, he references this sort of thing several times throughout the interview, talking about how he would rather be dealing with Biden, how he's been done wrong, assassinated by his own party, and how she's a very fake and very manipulative woman. Eventually, the conversation moved on to climate change, from which I preserve only this exquisite view.
You know, the biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise one eighth of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right?
Absolutely spot on, Donald. That's all climate change means. More oceanfront property. And the properties that are already on the oceanfront. Hold on, let me think about this for a moment. The environment is actually the one area where Musk pushed back ever so gently. And I emphasize, ever so gently. But Donald was having none of it.
There is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So I mean, it still gives us. So what it means is like we still have quite a bit of time.
I do say, though, I've heard in terms of the fossil fuel, because even to create your electric car and create the electricity needed for the electric car, fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants. And, so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. I mean, someday you might be able to. But I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left.
This happened quite a lot during the interview. They talked at cross purposes, in tangents. Musk would be talking about the time left before we have to deal with carbon emissions. Trump would respond with the time left in terms of fossil fuels. Musk would mention nuclear energy generation. Trump would respond with a point about the nuclear bomb. They were on completely different wavelengths. Musk had his own agenda: shrink the state, low taxes, big projects, deregulation, completely unfettered free speech. Trump just did not bite. He had his own agenda. And it was clear that Musk realized during this actual conversation just how stupid Donald Trump is. Next on the agenda was defense.
And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to build an Iron Dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection, because it just takes one maniac to start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome.
Yes. Why shouldn't he have an Iron Dome? You could hear Musk in the background just there going, yes, as his soul slowly died. Quiet, Riot. Next, it was the turn of international diplomacy.
I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He respected me, and it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do. And he said, no way. And I said, way.
To be honest, by this point, my brain was seeping out of my ears like cheese fondue. No way, you say. Way, I say. I did perk up a little bit when they got onto the subject of the economy, and that's because Elon Musk has some very, very interesting views.
A lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending, because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply, and if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. So really, we need to reduce our government spending. and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not
Right.
sensible? And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly every
Right.
100 days.
That's right.
So I will concede that first point, that a lot of people don't understand where inflation comes from, because I thought it was very elegantly proven by Elon being one of those people who don't know where inflation comes from. But I will need some sort of citation for the second part of that figure that the deficit apparently is increasing by $1 trillion every 100 days or so. The conversation then moved on to what felt like Elon Musk's meat and potato. This was his real agenda. Big-scale projects. It turns out Musk doesn't mind government spending a shed load of money as long as it's going to one of his companies to build one of his harebrained schemes.
So I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible high speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels if with deregulation with an ability to actually where it's like legal to actually do the tunnels. Then you could have high speed tunnels that are actually better than anything else in the world for high speed transport between cities, and that would be something that Americans can say, "Wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the
Yeah.
world." That's the kind of thing that makes you proud to be an
And
American.
much safer than surface trains where there is a danger there, with people, with crazy
Yeah,
people. It's much safer, much better. And, it's sad because I've seen some of the greatest trains. I find it fascinating. And I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains, they call them, I guess. And
yeah.
they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems.
I feel really bad now for having derided Elon's tunnel train scheme. In fairness to me, it was before I knew that it was safer than surface trains. It was at this point that Piers Morgan put out a post that read, "Listening to Elon Musk and Donald Trump chat about trains just now was surprisingly fascinating. Love this X-Spaces conversation. It's like two mates chewing the fat about the world's problems. People who hate them will hate it, but everyone else will learn a lot from it." Any polyps, Piers, while you're up there? Next, Musk raised the letter he received from the European Union. You might have seen it floating around. It's basically a cease and desist type thing, saying your companies have to abide by our regulations or shift out. Musk set this up as a great attack on the freedom of speech. Again, Trump refused to take the bait. He just won't fight that boy's battles for him.
There's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries. And what do you think about that?
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know. We, through a different form, NATO, we protect them. And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible.
At this point, you might expect that Musk would pipe up and explain that 1 in 5 Tesla cars is sold in this impenetrable car market called the European Union, but of course he didn't. By now, I think you have the tenor of the conversation. On and on and on it went. There was praise for Javier Milei. There was a discussion about education, the policy to devolve it all to states and do away with the Department of Education. According to Trump, 35 states would do good. They'd be as good as Norway, but not California. California would do very badly. Then they discussed deregulation of pharmaceuticals. Why have the FDA even? If a drug has been passed elsewhere, obviously it's safe. Trump returned to his drill, 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 drill message, which again Musk feebly tried to push back against, but Trump was having none of it. There was loads of moaning about the many legal cases, the witch hunt against Donald Trump. They droned on and on about Kamala Harris destroying San Francisco, then destroying California, how she will open the borders, how she's worse than Bernie Sanders, how Tim Walz is worse than even her, hates Israel, and put tampons in boys' bathrooms, to which Elon exclaimed, "That's not right, that's not right." They moved on from subject to subject to subject, circling the airport, but never really bringing anything approaching a cogent argument in for a landing. Then came, I think, my second favourite moment of the entire evening.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So
Right.
it's
Well, that's
really
great.
not
That's great.
something that
That's great.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But
Yeah.
Nuclear disasters, they get quite a bad rap, but look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They're fully recovered as cities now, 80 years later. This was followed by my absolute favourite moment of the evening, when Trump mistook the number of impressions that the tweet advertising this Spaces chat had with the number of the people listening, which at that moment was over 1 million. But Trump thought it was 67 million, because that's how many people basically that tweet had reached, and started bragging to Elon Musk that he had been promised only 25 million, and they had obviously done so much better than anticipated.
By the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get
yeah,
nervous because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number? That's crazy. It's amazing how you can see that right away. How many? What is the number? Wow. What is it?
well,
Wow.
I think in
Wow,
terms of people
that's a
that
big, that's bigger than you said. You said 25 and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70. And I guess over a period of time, hey, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
And all that remained were thank yous and goodbyes, and in Musk's case that took the weird form of a bizarre apologia about how he's not really a far-right person. He couldn't be. He makes electric cars. Truly, truly strange, but I think it reveals a part of him that is quite vulnerable. He really does hate that people dislike him so much. Ho-hum.
I'd just like to note to people listening, like I've not been very political before, and if you look at my record, I've actually been. I'm not like some they try to paint me as like a far right guy, which is absurd because I'm like making electric vehicles and solar and batteries, helping with the environment, and I actually I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running for president, and so it's not like I'm like some sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I'd call myself, historically a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like we're really at a critical juncture for the country, and I think a lot of people thought the Biden administration would be a moderate administration, but it's not, and obviously we're just going to see an even further left administration with Kamala. That's my honest opinion. I mean, her dad is literally. She was brought up as an actual. Her dad is a Marxist economist. You can Google it. I mean, it's not a. We're not making this up. That's how she was brought up. So, and we want to have a future that is prosperous. And I think we're just at this critical juncture, and I think this is a case of the America is kind of at a fork in the road, and
True.
and I think it will take if the path to, like you are the path to prosperity, and I think Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my honest opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy, and I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself, but I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion, and I haven't been really active in politics before. And I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically has been moderate, if not moderate, slightly left. I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
Well, I want to thank you. And, I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So it's
Yeah.
even more of an
Well,
honor to have
yeah.
your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it.
And you would think that would be the end of it. But no, they went on for another 20 minutes at least, going back over the same ground, saying the same stuff, the same war stories, making the same points, doing basically the political equivalent of, you hang up, no, you hang up.
You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people. A great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up. And I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election. And I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country because if
Yeah.
we don't win, I just feel so sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny of civilization, and I think we need to take the right path, and I think you're the right path. So I think
Well,
that's what it comes down to.
thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor, and we'll do it again sometime. And it's been really fun, and I hope you got a lot of viewers. I hear you got a lot, but I hope you
Sure.
got a lot.
Yeah.
I know you got a lot of them. So I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
I hope you enjoyed this midnight bonus edition of Quiet Riot, and I hope we get loads of listeners. Thank you, and have a lovely day. Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith, Alex Andreou and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canello. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Sandstone Global.
It's nice to have a
Yeah. Yeah.
forum like this where I can discuss something at length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass on
No, they
you.
could not.